Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. Three market traps you should avoid. These are traps that most people fall into, especially when I talk with people who live in an expensive market and they say, my market costs too much. There's no way I can invest here. I've got to find me a new market to invest in. I specifically chose an expensive market to invest in because it took less properties to reach financial freedom. There are probably markets where it is too expensive, but I think that's a lot more expensive than people think. But for those people who live in that place that is too expensive, or you live in Chernobyl and you don't want the radioactive rats to eat your tenants and you do need to find a new market, these are three traps that people fall into. The first one is chasing the cash on cash myth. That amazing cash on cash return on investment or yield, or where the money just makes more sense. So the person or the investor goes to the internet, which is going to be a common theme in most of these myths that people fall into, and they pull up a map of Zillow or Redfin or Realtor or some website I don't know of, and they start running the numbers. They look at the rents, they go to fair market rents, they look at basic allowance for housing for the military, they look at some rent comps, they get a snapshot of what they think rents are. They look at the prices and they've been looking in their own market, but now they're looking at this new market and they go, man, those numbers look so much better than mine. Like if you're in San Diego where Ryan is, and it's a negative 3% return on pretty much everything you look at, and you look at another market and you go, wow, 10 to 15% in a market, I'm throwing my money there. And then you call and you say, I have California money. I want to invest in your market. That agent will have a screamingly good deal for you. Instead of saying, is the math better there? Ask, why is the math better there? The first thing is the math is generally going to look better in the worst market to invest in because they're going to have really high turnover rates, really long vacancies, and it's not just money. Investing in a market where the numbers make sense, if the math was actually good and it was a good market to invest in, don't you think there'd be a lot of investors or local investors who'd be snatching those deals off of the market? But you're special and you're the market master that found the place where the math works. So when we think, why is there vacancy or why is it so hard to get a tenancy? Most people think, well, it's just a bad neighborhood. If you go to Gary, Indiana, where Millennial Mike invests, it's just, it's got to be crime ridden. Well, no, industry moved away. Maybe you invest in an area where the weather is the problem. Like the turnover and vacancy, it's not just going to cost you money. The math might even still look good, but how many months of your year are you going to spend finding a tenant, screening tenants, dealing with your property manager? I want you to think, what could be in this area that is causing the tenant turnover? Could it be there's just a bad demographic there, right? For a long time, where my brother lives, Roy, Washington, it just had kind of this white nationalist bad reputation. What if you're in a place like Lacey, Washington, where for decades there was a mushroom farm that had a really bad smell? Or if the properties you're looking at are next to something really loud, train station, airport, club scene, whatever it is, it could be more than just it's a bad market. It could be a nice neighborhood, but there's high turnover for people. So that's the first myth that I want you to fall into is don't chase math. The second one is crime data. I get this so many times when I'm talking to people and they say, hey, I want to look at this new market, but I want to know if it's a safe area to invest. I don't want to be able to, I don't want to feel bad if I send a handyman or a contractor to this place. I don't want to be able to hire armed security if I'm going to go collect rent. I want to invest in a safe neighborhood. So what do people do? They fall back into almost the same problem of the first problem of chasing the math. They go online. They look up crime statistics. And there are some free sources out there for you. Here we've got crimegrade.org. Find the safest areas, big bold print right on their website. Find the safest areas. A little bit smaller, find the safest and most dangerous areas in your city or state. You also have neighborhoodscout.com. This sounds good. Someone's going to scout the neighborhood for you. You might as well go to a website and check this stuff out. Custom analytics to invest, appraise, or finance real estate. This is a crime website where the first thing they put in the biggest letters is you can invest, appraise, or finance real estate. How accurate do you think the data is going to be from a website that could potentially be saying, here's where you should invest? Now we've got the one that pops up the most, spotcrime.com. This has come up in some of my members only meetings, but spotcrime.com is also another free one. There might have a paid one. I don't know anything about this website because I don't use them, but not because of the reason I'm going to talk about, because the second thing I'm going to talk about. But if we look at this, it's find crime in your neighborhood. Sounds good. But what are the ads on the screen of this screenshot that I took this morning? Get your 2025 pre-appraisal now. Home buyers are saving thousands with this special program from Mr. Cooper. And I'm not going to say anything negative about Mr. Cooper because he has about half my mortgages. If websites are trying to encourage investors, why would they be motivated to tell you accurate data? That's not even the problem. Here's the real problem. Let me tell you a little story about 8 years in law enforcement. Every quarter and every year, you have a directive as the prosecuting attorney, as the officer on the streets. You get told from the chain of command, this is a year where the mayor wants to get reelected. Make sure when you write something up, you try to do misdemeanors instead of felonies. Or maybe this is a year where your police chief is trying to get more funding for the department, and it needs to look like crime is on the rise. So they say, anytime you have the opportunity, whether it gets persecuted or prosecuted, however you want to say that, by the attorney in your county, write it up as a felony. So we can say that reported crimes are on the rise. We need more funding. Maybe it's more positions, more equipment. What is the year goal dictates what information gets fed to the websites where you're finding your information. Don't fall into the crime data trap. And D, population growth. How many times have you heard people going, I want to invest in a market where the population is growing? I hear it all the time. I mean, people actually have websites where they go, I'm going to go to the county website and see what the population was 2 years ago, and I'm going to see what it was a year ago. Other more creative people will go to U-Haul, where they actually have a U-Haul growth index, and it'll say, here's where our trucks are going. Some years we'll even pay you to drive our trucks back to the states everybody left. So you're picking a market by throwing a dart at the map saying, this is where U-Haul says everybody's moving. This is what the county websites say. Instead of saying, where are people moving? I really want you to think, why are people moving? If people hit a certain age, like I grew up in the desert in Southern California. I wanted to do anything to get out of the desert. I joined the Marines to get out. They put me in 29 Palms, Saudi, Kuwait, like everywhere there was just dirt. So I moved north when I got out of the military. When people get older, they might not like the wet climate. They might not like the Siberia weather of where Matt, the lumberjack landlord, invests, and they might want to move south until people move north and realize it actually does have 9 months worth of rain. And Washington's full, nobody else can move here. And you move to Arizona and you think Phoenix is amazing in February. And then you realize that 118-degree weather in the shade sucks 3 months out of the year. Politics, people move because they don't like the way the state voted, and they move to a new state and everybody keeps voting the same way, and then that state becomes the same problem that they just left. Remote work, these are options that are allowing people to move, tracking these movements. But when you think why people are moving, how long will they stay? Is this a boomerang move? A ton of people moved out of Washington and California when we had the pandemic in 2020. They said, I don't like my kids having to get the jab. I don't want to have to wear a mask. They got to Boise and they had the worst winter in a decade. And they snapped right back to their state and they said, yep, I'll put a mask on. At least the winter's not trying to kill me. Remote work has impacted rents for a few years because remote workers aren't sure if they're going to be able to stay permanently or if they're going to get called back to the office. So I found a few deals in real estate because rents pushed up in these new markets where remote workers can move to, but prices haven't. How long will that be the case? As more and more remote workers feel more secure in their ability to stay, prices will start to change too. So think, where are people moving? But follow it up with, why are they moving there? What's going to be more impacted? The rents, the home values, the population trend? So there's three market traps I'm trying to get you to avoid. The cash flow myth, the crime data, population trends. Don't fall into the trap of thinking these tell you if it's a good market or if it's where you should throw your money. Now, how messed up would it be if I made a video and I said negative, 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 and I joined the Crash Bros with how everything sucks and the sky is falling, and I didn't give you some solutions? So, what do you actually do? How do you figure these things out when you're looking at a market? Well, the first thing you need to do is go to Amazon. Here's the commercial in this video, and buy my book. It just came out. It's Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person. That's a small little 496 pages of me brain dumping all of the knowledge I've developed over the last decade in writing so that you can learn. If you're not the person that learns from audio or video, or your spouse isn't, or if you're a real estate agent and you're looking for that amazing closing gift to give to your new clients, here you go. I hooked you up. But if you want to look at chasing the math, don't chase math, chase trust. Chase trust. Where do you have trusted boots on the ground? If you're investing in a new market, do you know an investor that also invests there? If I didn't find the deal I was going to close on in my state, I gave myself a year. I was going to invest in a new market. My friend Millennial Mike, probably one of my closer friends, I would have jumped on his coattails and used his systems. He's got property managers, handyman contractors, the team's in place, and he knows the market. He would have steered me clear of bad deals. I know an investor who knows that market. Do you know a contractor or real estate agent? Somebody that you know that you trust so much, you think they're probably going to come to your funeral. Most importantly, you could be the trusted boots on the ground. Now, it can be I invest in the Northwest because I live in Washington and I know the good and bad areas. My brother invests in California and Washington because he lived in both. If you used to live in a market, you kind of know where to invest and where to avoid. Stay on top of things. But if you can invest locally, you're the trusted boots on the ground. If you go to a new market, find someone that you trust that's also somehow involved in real estate to help you make the right decisions. When it comes to crime information, here's how I find the information when I'm looking at a new market. I have helped people look at new markets. Those websites are skewed by data because people have an agenda. What I want you to do, some departments might not be helpful, but most are. As an officer, I always enjoyed it when I got a phone call that didn't end up in a report. Because as you fall behind in reports in your day, that actually makes work. And yeah, there's some lazy cops out there. Like there's lazy investors. But call the non-emergency police number. Don't call 911. The non-emergency police number and just ask, hey, can I have an officer call me? I have a few questions. You just tell a cop, hey, I don't want to waste your time. I want to be really quick. I'm looking at buying a house. And in this situation, you want to be a owner. You don't want to be a renter. Most officers know that most of your problems come from tenants who don't have as much to lose as homeowners. So you want to be an owner and you're thinking, hey, I'm looking at buying a house in this neighborhood, maybe on this street. Is that safe? Can you guys go there alone or do you have to go in teams? Do you get a lot of calls there? Get current data from boots on the ground. Maybe they'll help. Maybe they won't. The next thing is you can call property managers in the area that you're looking at investing. And in this case, you want to be an investor. You want to represent potential future work for this property manager and say, I'm looking at buying some rentals in this market. If I owned one on this street, would you manage it? If a property manager says, no, I won't manage anything within half a mile of 301 T Street in Tumwater, Washington, or anything within 3 blocks of McKinley Avenue in Tacoma, maybe don't invest there. But look at those relationships you build. If I was going to invest in Gary, Indiana, where I went with Millennial Mike one year, and we took videos where it was literally street by street. One was okay, one was terrifying, one was not good, one was okay. He would know the streets to go on, the ones to avoid. He's got a good team in place. That relationship with other investors can be one of your strongest tools. So for the crime information, take a screenshot. These are the ways that I would do it. Avoid the websites that have the bad data. Population doesn't matter to me. I own a duplex in McKenna, Washington. When I purchased it, there were 600 residents in the whole town. Now there's 450. I had a tenant turnover about a year ago, and there was a massive amount of demand because what there was a lot of economic drivers. It's on the backside of a base on the least populated side, but there's a lot of military members who don't want to live on the citified side of the base. It's a couple of miles from a Walmart. What economic drivers are close by? Now, there isn't a Boeing or an Amazon, but there's Wilcox Farms, who basically employed everybody in Yelm at some point, the largest town near McKenna. Are there economic drivers that can make a small population area a good investment? Yes. I don't care if the population is growing or shrinking. I want to know what businesses are in the area. And are there enough to where if one or two go away, I'm still going to have people that want to rent my properties. This is a nice short video for those people who would never click on a 2-hour video. If you want your questions answered, I go live every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, and the video lasts basically as long as the questions do. That's a video I will release as a separate video. Today, we're actually still here, and we're going to answer all of your questions that you ask today. I hope that was information that will help you. That was the goal, is that my information will help people. That's why I do all of this. Seems like my lights are weird today. What's going on? There we go. That's better. Oh, I look like a people now. That's scary. To go through the questions, starting at the top. Howdy, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Tuesday. Cracked Canvas. Saw your write-up. That was really cool. Thank you. Thanks for all the wisdom and real-life advice you share with the average W-2 employee like me wanting to reach FIRE in 10 years or less, 39 years old, but no debt. I'm saving for my reserves now on a fourplex. Nice. You are way ahead of the game. Sounds like you got a good start. Frank, howdy. How'd you get your picture? Pretty much. Josh Burdick made it to page 52 last night. Nice. Have you found the spelling errors? Because this is an unedited book. This is letting you know that the average person that can reach financial freedom can also write an average book. Uh, Aloha from Watsonville, California. Nice. So yeah, technically Josh is 1/9 of the way through, 480. Yep. Wayne Wong, howdy. Good to see you here. B staff actually made it to alive. Good to see you here. Mikey, Buzztune, good to see you. Howdy Freedom Works. Aloha Mark. B staff, Wayne Wong. PowerPoint. Yes. Put together some information because I guess sometimes people do watch the videos. Most times people tend to uh, just listen. That's why I stopped doing the videos where I talk to myself. Got too many complaints that people couldn't understand what was happening. .org sounds something phallic for a second. I almost said it almost sounds like it's an official, like they're like a .gov website or something. I guess that's how you say it, .org or .org. Smoke the like button like a Cheech and Chong. Laura, howdy. Good to see you here. Logan, got my book today. Really looking forward to reading what Dion has to say. Thank you. Let me know what you think. Olienka, howdy. Good to see you. You're loving the book, Stephen? Awesome. Thank you for that. I tried to write the book, and I've said this a couple times. I didn't do like goldfish TikTok memory work, like where people can think in 15 seconds, but most sections of the book are 3 to 5 pages. Like they're not 20-page chapters. It's like this concept is in a few pages. There's an index at the beginning. So when you get to a point of investing, and hopefully you've read the book through once, but when you go back and you want to refresh your mind on the one subject that you're working on today, it's short, it's brief, it's to the point. I see a super chat from Calhoun REI. Howdy, Adam. The book was great. 5-star review left. Thank you. Closing on deal number 4 tomorrow. You and the One Rental at a Time community have been a big part of my journey. Thank you. Thank you so much. Congratulations on your closing. You have to email me some details on that. That would be really cool. I wish I could show you what YouTube is doing. The preview is like stuck on one page after another. Like I could tell the video's current. My chat moved, which is great. Happy Tuesday. I like when the chat moves. That means somebody put a question. I like the questions. B staff, you got the A, 2, and D. Nice. Must be the crayons. Yes, I do have my crayons ready to eat right there on the shelf. It's a quick read. I'm already a fourth of the way through. It is a quick read. It's big font, it's double spaced. I tried to make it like reader friendly. I will do an Audible version, but that is going to take months. And the process of getting it uploaded and put out on Audible is a long process. There'll be an ebook probably within a month. Flavio, good afternoon, everyone from Grandview. Howdy. Are you enjoying our beautiful Washington summer where it's been cloudy and weird for days? Howdy, David. Good to see you here. Uh, Captain Charisma. I'm a captain. No, it's Captain Obvious. Sorry. Captain Riz. Howdy. Are fourplexes better than duplexes? This is a great question. Thank you. So if you look at the simple math, you're allowed to have 10 conventional loans in your name before you have to go DSCR, asset-based, seller finance, which you can do sooner, and sometimes it's a better option. But if you can go to 10 conventional loans, 10 fourplexes means you have 40 units. That would be better. When I was starting out, though, I had a fairly low income. When I first started saving to invest in real estate, I was making $17 an hour in 2011 and 12. So when I was like racking the money away, I got laid off from law enforcement in 2008, 9, and I spent almost a year working for Oak Harbor Freight Lines, and then they went on strike. And then I got the job teaching CDL school, making $17 an hour. And so the idea of owning a fourplex and having two or three non-paying tenants would have been crippling mentally. I would have thought, oh, a couple of months and I'll have to file bankruptcy. Not sure if it's true, and I've never had the vacancy issue, but it was a bigger risk than I was willing to take, so I wanted a duplex. Also, saving 5% down on a duplex was a little easier than saving 5% down on a fourplex. So starting out, I targeted duplexes. I got three duplexes and then paid off a house, which cost me $1 million. And then I bought my first fourplex. So I was 7 years into owning rentals as purchasing them as rentals before I got the fourplex. Could have probably done it sooner, but I was comfortable with duplexes. So cold logic mathematically, fourplexes can be called better, but look at the whole picture. How much reserves do you have? How much of what size of mortgages can you have? Can you handle if you had vacancies? And when you're just starting out, do you want 4 units on one street? I wanted 2 units in one town, 2 units in another town, so that when those economic drivers change, they can't impact all four tenants all at once. So clear as mud. Makes total sense if you don't think about it. Your position dictates whether a duplex or a fourplex is better. And then to wrap up the answer to this question, since 2021. So at the beginning of 2020, I bought a fourplex and I was like, wow, this is a really amazing cash flow. It like doubled my cash flow. And then, because it was my second house hack, so that was also a factor. Then I emptied my retirement accounts, bought a triplex, and I started making videos around 2021. And I said, I want my next purchase to be a fourplex. I want it to cost at least $1 million because I was saving the down payment. I was getting up at 250,000. I was like, oh, I have a 25% down on $1 million fourplex. I want to find one. And I kept saving. So I was looking for fourplexes. So in my mind, at my position for what I was investing, fourplex was the best deal. But a good duplex popped up in 2021. So I snagged it. And then a good duplex popped up in 2023. So I snagged it. So my goal is a fourplex still, but I'm going to grab the next great deal that I find. So if you go, you like duplexes, but if an amazing fourplex pops up, maybe consider it. And vice versa. B staff, okay, is it question time now? It is, yes. The goal on the live streams in the future when I do the intro is the reason I do the intros is to give people a chance to get questions into the comments. I hope that there's a bunch there. Because, I mean, I could just, every now and then I do go live and I just go, hey, I'll take questions. And here I am. And I've had people kind of complain, just going, what are you just taking this off the cuff? Yes, that's the point of these. So something educational, informational at the beginning, 10 to 20 minutes of every live stream, all the way back. It's 176 of them now. And then the questions happen after that. But I hope the questions get put in during the intro. Kevin, howdy. Dark Spring, howdy. Jason, I like your new slides. Thank you. Howdy. You could, you could tell I had a little bit of time today. I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons online. I stepped away from WoW for a minute and took the time to write the books. Didn't game for a while, so now I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons online. I'm an old school gamer. I like that kind of stuff. But they're down on Tuesdays. And I was like, huh, what can I do with a couple extra hours? Oh, there you go. That was the result. Delbert, howdy. When they say equity growth, how do you live off it by refinancing? Uh, Thank you for coming to the channel. I appreciate that you're here. I say that because I don't want to be sarcastic, because if you watch the channel for a while, you will realize I am a sarcastic. I've been a Marine, a cop, and a truck driver. There's like very few things I cannot be sarcastic about. My normal speech pattern is sarcasm. So when you ask the question, it's when they say equity growth, that means they, who is they? They is not me. I always try to redefine equity for anybody who I'm helping get into real estate, because people think of equity as money I can take out, right? I need to take my money and my equity out and do something. I'm going to reinvest it. I'm going to whatever, right? I'm going to use the debt because then I'm not paying taxes on it. You heard they say all kinds of things. Here's what equity is. I don't live on equity. I've never touched it. I've never done a home equity line of credit, not a cash out refinance. I've never sold for a 1031. I don't plan on it. I hope that owning all of my real estate lasts better than all of my marriages is is until death do us part. I live on cash flow. Some people are in a position where they can take the money out, like they say, and buy another asset that makes so much money it covers the debt on the new asset and the debt on the old one. But here's what equity is. Let me redefine equity for you. Equity growth. Equity means you have the ability to add debt to an existing asset. And a lot of times people think, well, I have a $300,000 mortgage on $1 million property. I could take three or $400,000 out and buy another property. I'll be making more money. No, you're adding three or $400,000 in debt to your $1 million property. So let's make it really clear. And I probably should do this on a whiteboard someday, as per Curtis' request, because he's spurred the thought that made a few videos. PE turned REE is his YouTube channel. If you have a paid off house and it's making $2,000 a month in profit, right? I have a paid off house rented to a Section 8 tenant. They're paying $3,000 a month, some from the tenant, some from the state. After property taxes and insurance and setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, I am making more than $2,000 a month on that property. However, what if I put a mortgage on it and now I had a $2,000 payment? I go buy something else and maybe that property, makes money, but I'm no longer making the $2,000 or more on my paid off property. Simple math, paid off versus mortgage. So why is it any different if you have a mortgage and you add some debt to it? So I'm not a fan of that. Now that's called recycling capital. If you pull out money, add debt to an existing asset to buy more. Matt, the lumberjack landlord, and Michael Zuber have both done that. I think even Millennial Mike has done that. Their portfolios are 10 times the size of mine. So if your goal is growth for the sake of growth, sure, but I don't want growth. My goal is the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. And that should be a short in its own right there. Just do a short, the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. For me, that was a high cost of living area where I saved the down payment and purchased a property. Now, the first duplex, I did house hack. The next one was 20% down, then 25% down. And then I paid off a house and lost a bunch of money. And then it was 20% down again. But I kept saving, and it wasn't fast. Like I said, I started saving in 2011, 2012. The first duplex was 2013. The next one was 2015, right? The next one was a year and a half later. And then it was a couple of years till the fourplex. It sped up after that, right? In 2020, I got two, and in 2021, I got one. So in 2 years, I got three properties. I went from one every 2 years to three in 2 years. It's a big change. That doesn't happen in the first 5 years. For most people, it happens in the next 5 years. There you go. Now, some people could live off of it by refinancing, pull the money out and live on it. I mean, there's a strategy for that, but it's not my thing. I like the cash flow. Here's the breakdown, Delbert, if you're new to the channel. I've invested for a little over a decade, but at the decade mark, about 8 properties. Okay, so I don't have hundreds of units. On 8 properties, I have 18 units. I live in one, so I'm renting out 17 units. The total cash flow, not cash flow, the total cash coming in every month is about 35,000, a little bit more than that. I have about 9,000 in mortgages going out, was 8,000, but insurance and property taxes have gone up. So it's about 9,000 a month going out for mortgages. I set aside $5,150 a month, which is a cop joke, because 5,150 is the hold of a crazy person. That's about 15%. I set that aside for future repairs. That's over 60,000 a year. My worst expense year where I did a roof and a septic system and had a bunch of issues was $36,000. So I've never spent the amount of money I'm setting aside. That leaves me with about $21,000 a month that I am trying to figure out how to spend. I live on around four, and that's going out to eat all the time. I don't cook. I raised three picky kids. I took an oath. I'm never going to cook again. Uh, but that's what can happen with a small portfolio and why I don't recycle capital. Now, did it suck? Was it, if you recycle capital, you'll get more units faster, right? That Millennial Mike invested in Gary, Indiana. One of the reasons, and this is just my opinion, he might have even said this, he's literally a millennial. It's Millennial Mike in his name. He likes the dopamine hit of closing on a property every 3 or 4 months. I don't want to be making offers and buying properties. I do one deal every 2 years. That's plenty. In 10 years, I had enough to retire and never work again in my life. Been retired for 3 years now. This is not terrible. I want to make that video. Like, I just don't think I have the artistic nature to put into words what it is actually like to have time freedom and to realize you live in a different world. People like Michael Zuber say every day is Saturday. It's so accurate, except Saturday has a ticking time clock for everyone else. Even if you love your job, if you're looking forward to Friday, life sucks. I have no idea where I'm going to be in a month or 3 months or what day. Nothing. There's no schedule. I have complete time control. It's phenomenal. That word had syllables. PE turned RE. Tell me more about the RV idea. RV house hack to clarify. So my friends, Craig and Talitha Walker, they have a small YouTube channel. I don't know if they kept doing it. It was Pod in Durango, RV house hack. Then they went into, here's my whiskey that they drink. So cheers to them. I'm out of Mountain Dew, so you get the vodka video because it's usually vodka and Mountain Dew mix. So the RV house hack is when you purchase a property and you're going to house hack it. House hack means you're reducing or eliminating your largest expense, which is housing. Most people think it's just roommates, but no, it could be buying two houses on one property, in a house and an ADU, or buying a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, living in one unit, renting out the others. If you're like Curtis, you could buy a triplex and then section off yours and try to have roommates also, because that's like next level dedication to wanting to be financially free. Uh, but they bought an RV. They had a house in Tacoma, so they weren't very far from you. You're in Lakewood, Curtis. They were in Tacoma, and they lived on 56th Street, which is not a great area, great market. You could probably rent out. They had a small house. They could probably rent it out for, I don't know, 1,500 a month or so, maybe $1,200 a month at the time. This was a few years ago. Rent it out for more now. They purchased an RV and lived on the property in the RV. So it's owner occupied loan. They satisfied that you must intend to live on the property. It doesn't say you have to intend to live in the house or that you can't have roommates. You must intend to live on the property. They did in an RV and they Airbnb'd the house. So maybe with your situation, you don't Airbnb unless you get into that. They were making $3,000 or $4,000 a month in profit on a property they could have rented out for less than 1,500 a month. But then they purchased a place in Tumwater, Washington, moved their RV there, had a house, planned on doing a build, ended up buying another one and doing something else. But their goal was the reality is you could buy the next house, move your RV there, rent the house out. You're still living for free or close to free in your RV. And when people think RVs, be careful what you go and look at. Yes, you can go look at a little, not the Sprinter van, but the bigger one. But I mean, there are RVs. Curtis, I've been to your house. There are a ton of RVs for 10 grand or less because you're not traveling the country. You don't need to make sure the engine works that you can live in that has way more space than what you had, more space than what's in my house. There are RVs out there that big. And your yard at your current place is set up for that. And you can look for the next property saying, where is a house where I could park my RV and rent the house out? That opens up a lot more than just houses and ADUs and houses and duplexes, because in our state of Washington, the single family houses don't cash flow. But as a house hack, where you're living in the RV, it opens up more options. I'm not missing any super chats. Okay. Uh, Delroy Samuels, howdy. On page 358 of your book, Loving It So Far, you broke it down very well and easy to follow. Thank you. I mean, thank you so much for that. That was the idea was when you put something in writing, you can't do what I just did. You can't use tonality. You can't use a pause. You can't express emotion with your facial features. You can't ask questions. You have to put in enough detail so somebody reading gets the concept of what you're talking about and can take action on it. That was a totally different format for presenting the information. So I've been looking forward to everybody's feedback. All-Nighter Hider, thank you. Harsh Reality to Fire, howdy. Did you run your book through IA? Probably meant AI, just to see what it said, like you did your YouTube. Uh, ooh, that's a good idea. So you mean like take a PDF, drop it into AI, and say, "What do you think of this book?" I have not, but I'm gonna. There we go. That's a great idea. Thank you. Maybe one of you can. Well, actually, you don't have the PDF version. That would be hard. When the ebook version comes out, you can. B staff. My question is, I'm considering doing a house hack. Should I sell my primary property 6 years in, or should I rent it out? I am not a fan of selling properties. I have never done it. If you've owned a property for 6 years, there is a chance it might cash flow. So you're in a perfect position to buy another house. Now, the trap you're going to fall into, because this gets all over YouTube, is they're going to say, well, you can't buy another house within 10 miles of your current one. No, that's FHA loans. FHA wants you to be moving towards a bigger house or from a multifamily, like a duplex, triplex, fourplex, down to a single family house. But conventional loans, which are way better than FHA, FHA is not designed for home buyers. It's designed for people with bad credit and a bad debt to income ratio. Try to call me on it, but I know my FHA rules and regulations. It was invented in 1934 to get 2 million construction workers back to work. It had nothing to do with getting people housing. But if you buy with a conventional loan, they don't care. You can go from a single family to a triplex. You can move farther away from work. You can move into a worse neighborhood. It doesn't matter. So if you look at conventional loans right now, since November of 2023, it's been 5% down for conventional loans for up to a fourplex. I would save and buy the house. What I did, actually, what I did, because I was in such a bad position, my debt to income ratio was really bad. And I'll make this brief because I say this often. But right after getting laid off from law enforcement, I found out about what I had to deal with was $89,000 in bad debt in my name I didn't know existed. I was a single parent with 3 kids, and I was making $17 an hour. Now, you can't get a loan when that's your life. So I moved from my house into an apartment and rented the house out. It's an option for you. If you live in an apartment for 2 years and rent your house out, after 2 years of getting rental income on your tax returns, your debt to income ratio almost means nothing, because now the lenders can look at 75% of your rental income against your debt to income ratio, including the rent from the property you're looking at buying. Hopefully your position is better than mine and you don't have to move into an apartment and rent your house out. But if you buy a place and rent your house out, let's say you buy a house, I prefer you'd buy a duplex or triplex or fourplex or a house with an ADU. But if you do that and you rent your house out, you start the clock ticking on your rental income on tax returns for 2 years, getting rid of any problems with debt to income ratio. It's actually in the book. How do you get multiple mortgages? So many people think it's tied to your salary, and it's not. It's tied to you proving to lenders that you're not a risk. And 2 years of owning rentals and having rental income says that you can find tenants, screen tenants, place tenants, advertise a property, maintain a property, and actually file the income with the IRS and still not pay taxes on it. $240,000 in profit last year, carried forward a loss. This is an amazing system we live in. Unless you work at W-2, which I did most of my life. It sucks. Deconstructing Dreams, a Financial Journey. Howdy. Julie, howdy. That's not a lazy shirt. What have you been up to? This is a stretchy shirt for the lazy people that don't like to iron stuff. It's a lazy shirt. That's what I like to hike in these breathe really well. I wish I had a link. Get them off Amazon. Stephen, what I like about the book is that you touched on the main topic, save, get out of debt. This is the first thing investors should do. Yes, the 6 steps to getting started in real estate. The first step is to save. And saving doesn't mean spending less. That's part of it. Saving means make more. Don't be complacent in your $17 an hour job that I had or your $35 an hour job that you have now because of inflation. What is the side hustle that you can do? Is there no tax on overtime? Is that a thing? Overtime's amazing now. What would it take to make more income? Is it climbing the corporate ladder for a 5 or 10% raise, or is it going to a competitor for a 30% raise because they want to steal you from your current company? People will do more to take you from somebody than to keep you. What is it going to take to increase your income? For me, it was a side hustle. I played World of Warcraft and I sold things online. I made $300 or $400 a month in profit that I saved directly towards the down payment on that first duplex and the second duplex. And it was at the second duplex that I stopped using WoW as a side hustle and started focusing on real estate and the many ways you can increase cash flow without raising the rent, and developed the binder strategy, which got me to raise the rent because the tenants asked me to raise the rent. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. B staff. The return on equity, if I rent, is 14.5, but if I put it up for rent, I don't think I'll be able to price it more than getting negative 6% cash on cash. So return on equity versus what you can rent it out for is always a challenge. You've had it for 6 years. Hopefully you refinanced around 2020, 2021 and got that 3% or better interest rate. Hopefully, if not, keep watching. If it would lose money as a rental and you already have it, is short-term or mid-term an option? Is it legal in your area? Since I wouldn't buy one if it had to work with that strategy, because then you might lose it and now you have an alligator, a property that loses money. If it's a loss, then maybe, yeah, I'm thinking if I had a property that was a loss, I'd probably sell it and redeploy the funds. I've been in that situation because I had my house for 10, 11 years before I turned it into a rental, right? So I was at that point where, because single family just do not make sense in my market. They do in some, they don't in mine. In that situation, maybe like email me some details and let me see if I can cipher a little better with more details. Duke, howdy. Can you explain a DSCR loan? And then Delroy took back a message to make me lose sleep and wonder forever and ever what was said. Duke, a DSCR, debt service coverage ratio loan. The idea here is the lender is more concerned with how the property performs than how you perform. They still look at your credit score, but they don't look at your income, your work history, your debt to income ratio. They might, in most cases, look at your net worth, and they'll say your net worth has to be half, 50%, or 100% of what you're trying to borrow. Each lender is different. But a debt service coverage ratio loan, it's right in the name, debt service coverage ratio. There's a ratio. One, each lender might be different. Sometimes it's 1.1, sometimes it's 1.2 or 3. But a 1.1 ratio means if the rent is $1,000, if the mortgage is $1,000, the rent has to be $1,100, right? The rent must be 1.1 times the mortgage for them to loan on it. They'll use area average rents, usually not existing leases. They'll find comps in the area and they'll run it that way. The benefit to a debt service coverage ratio is it doesn't count against the 10 conventional loans you can have in your own name. The lenders sometimes are 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30% down. So the down payment requirements often change. People who change jobs often don't have that work consistency in the same field. It gets rid of work history being a problem. Your debt to income ratio gets rid of that being a problem, right? This is not something I knew about in the beginning. I might have a very different story if I didn't think, debt service might work better for buying something, but it's not generally used for a house hack. It has to be used for a rental. Now, some people do it and then house hack it, but they run the numbers like it was a rental. The drawbacks, about 90% of the time that I've been watching interest rates, debt service coverage ratio loans have had a higher interest rate and higher down payment requirements than a conventional loan. There have been 2 times specifically that I remember seeing debt service DSCR loans with better interest rates than conventional because lending fears change and things change from month to month. So, what's the best for you? It matches your situation. Is it a house hack? DSCR might not be an option. Some DSCR lenders require that your property be purchased in an LLC, and I've got tons of videos on why I don't do LLCs. Would I for a DSCR loan? Sure, because the two times that I would have an LLC is if I had partners or if my lending required it. But yeah, I'm thinking if I'm missing anything there on the DSCR loan. Good option. The real benefit to DSCR loans is conventional loans, FHA, VA, all of that goes up to 4 units. Yes, there is a way to buy 5 units with them. And I've argued with doofuses online because I like to have those Facebook fights. You can get 5, and I can prove it mathematically. Let me know if you want to know how. But you can buy up to 4 units. With a DSCR loan, the lenders have different rules. I think Convoy Home Loans for a long time was you can get up to 8 to 10 units on the same 30-year fixed rate debt. Velocity Home Mortgage has it up to like 30 million. So it depends on the property. They can do 30-year fixed rate debt. Like so with conventional loans, I have been trapped at 4 units or less. I am looking at deals and was looking at deals more in like 21, 22, where I was going to go 6 or 8 unit. I don't really want those kind of units because the math of vacancy, there's a video. The average tenancy in a single family house or ownership of a single family house is 7 years. The average tenancy in an apartment is 2 years. So it's a sliding scale. The more similar your rental is to a single family house, the longer the tenancy you're more likely to have. So my duplexes with fenced yards, washer dryer hookups, separate garages, long-term tenants. My fourplex has had 2 tenant turnovers. Still long-term tenants, but it's more apartment-like than house-like. Christopher Ramsey, a season for each combo for sure. Exactly. Wayne Miller had a fourplex just off of McKinley, bought in 2004, sold in 2014. It made money, but the hassle factor. Used the money to pay down other debt. Glad it did. Yeah. McKinley's interesting. I mean, when you owned it, were there actual mattresses on fire on the side of the streets? Because that's what I saw the last time I drove by there. I've seen dumpster fires many times. I've seen cars sitting on their sides. It's easier to get the catalytic converter off that way. Know your bad areas. Delroy, what are your thoughts on electric heating? The tenants pay for it in Connecticut, closing on September 5th. So I would say it's market dependent because the lumberjack landlord would tell me I'm wrong, and I would tell him he's wrong if we were looking at the whole market. But in his market, gas is the most reliable and the cheapest heat. In my market, I rip out gas. I only do electric. Like the last house I bought, it has 2 gas meters, 2 coming in that just ripped them all out, ripped out all the piping and everything. It's just not an option here. I put in cadet heaters, cheaper, it's more reliable, power doesn't go out very often. Uh, you can put in space heaters and even do better than what you can do for gas. Our amazing, can you say retard on every time I say gay or retarded, some gay retard tells me it's offensive. Uh, tried to make it illegal to own gas running stoves. So it depends on your state, depends on your market. For me, uh, I prefer electric, but that's what works in my market. Nolan, howdy. Can you explain what the new work book, Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person, is all about? Hopefully it's correct because it's not a workbook. There's not like it's basically set up as a lesson plan, but there's not like quizzes at the end and all that kind of stuff. It is should open and share the screen. I should take too long. There are different sections in the book. I tried to keep the part that is my story to a minimum. Like there's a short, because you can get my story on YouTube. It took a decade. Here's what it looked like. But then there's these mental shifts. There's a section on mental shifts, a whole chapter. The things I had to look different about money. And then there's actionable lessons, the things I learned in the decade of owning rentals. There's a section on my Dionisms, things I do backwards, like why do I want all my leases to end in the winter? Why do I not raise the rent? I have my tenants do it. Why do I not want to own in a good school district. Like all of those things. There's a bunch of those that I do backwards. There's there's a chapter on the binder. There's a chapter on house hacking, but each chapter is broken into sections, right? I don't expect anybody to read a 20 or 30 page chapter and retain all the information. But when you're doing a tenant screening, go to the tenant screening 101 section in the actionable lessons chapter, and you can go to the index and it tells you right where it is, what page it's on. And you go to it and you go, okay, here's all the things I do when I'm screening a tenant so I don't miss any. Or I just closed on a property. What do I do? What's my checklist so I don't miss anything? Go to the book, look up the index. I just closed on a property. What do? Go to that page. It's all there. So it's all broken down. And I did it on in the book. Again, I said this earlier in the video, so that the information is clear because not everyone can understand me. If people think in a Boston accent or a Southern drawl, maybe the way I talk doesn't work. But in writing, everybody can use their own accent. John, howdy. Who else is busy reading 500 pages? I hope a few people. Sent one. I sent one to my friend Adam, who is the guy who's going to take me out under questionable circumstances. So if I'm ever taken out, it's Adam. He read it. He's reading it because he's an English. He's got a master's in English and he went to Columbia and taught English at a college. He just wants to point out any mistakes I made, any grammatical errors. I lost my place in the chat. So the book is on Amazon. Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person. Dark Spring, if you like D&D online, you should try Baldur's Gate 3. I can't stand Baldur's Gate 3 for a very specific reason. It's a great game. Ton of work went into it. I respect what they did. I prefer first action, but I don't like first action shooters. When you've been to war, I don't come home and play Battlefield 4. But, cast spells, ride unicorns, sure. I mean, whatever. Fantasy. But I want to create the character. And Baldur's Gate 3 came out and said, no, you can have a character, but you have to have three or four that you didn't create. You didn't get to their level. It's no fun. I don't enjoy it. So when they have you don't have to jailbreak the game, but you can make an entire party of characters you made and just play. Absolutely. All right. Nerd off, back to real estate. Dividend Dave. Howdy. David, have a Section 8 question. How have your rent rates compared to the fair market rent? My zip code has a great fair market rent, but it sounds too good even after utilities are accounted for. So fair market rent is not always what they're going to pay. Your local counselors will also, the people who work at the housing authority or the nonprofit that runs the voucher program in your county, will go the age of the building, or not the age of the building, the style of the building, stick built versus mobile home versus, if it's a rent by the room situation. They'll try to do lower because their mentality is, and I understand the mentality. If their fair market rent is $1,000 and they pay somebody $800, that gives them $200 towards some other voucher. It's not how it works, but it's how their brains think. So I've had to do the work for my housing authority. I wanted the rent at like 2,200. The fair market rents was 23 or 24 at the time. They told me 18 was the most they would pay. I sent them screenshots of the comps that were 23, 2,400. I sent them a screenshot of their fair market rent. And I said, I'm only going to 2,200. And they said, okay, we'll go to 2,200. So I had to do the work for them. I had to show them the data to get it to work. So it can fluctuate. I don't think it will very often go over. They do have a 10% variance. So if the cap is 1,000, they can go to 1,100 if there's a shortage of units. But you're going to have to fight pretty hard for that usually. I'm getting fair market rent. So think little town, Yelm, Washington. The comps in the area aren't even as much as fair market rent, but I'm getting fair market rent. So $3,000 for a rental. I don't mind. Each housing authority is unique. And I don't want to call anybody out by name, but Thurston County, Washington is great. My Section 8 tenants, I'll have more. I actually am probably going to fill one of my next units if there's a turnover with Section 8 tenant by targeting Section 8 tenants. I will send my listing to the housing authority and say, share this with your clients because the listing comes out on Tuesday. Pierce County, Washington can suck it. The worst customer service, the most The bad response time, not helpful. So I will not own a Section 8 property in Pierce County, Washington. That's been my experience. What is your county like dictates whether you should have Section 8 tenants or not. Angry capitalist. I noticed they did not popularize using refi or HELOC until rates were below 3 to 4%. That is true. And so in 2005, 6, and 7, the refinance was look at all of your equity, buy that RV or that boat. Home prices only go up. Worked out great for everybody. Experience is that thing that lets you recognize mistakes when you're making them again. Anna Kay, howdy. Missed you at the local meetup last night. Work and meetings gets on my way. I will catch up with first 30 minutes later. Nice. Hopefully you enjoy the first 30 minutes. I did a presentation, which I don't normally do. Normally the lives are just me talking, covering a topic for 10 to 20 minutes, and what it's usually going to be. I'm lazy. I want to help you. I want to give you the information, but I want to do it in the easiest way for me. Jason, thank you for the pulling equity statement. That made up my mind not to do it. I missed all the great info I get here every week. Jason, damn, you didn't even add water or ice to that. No. You see what my face did? Ice to vodka? No, that's like putting steak sauce on a steak. Brita filter, skull, run it through the Brita 3 times to take out any of the water some goober at the plant added to make it taste the way they like it. And then you get the good stuff. You can't drink all day unless you start early, Dan. All Nighter Hider. A good way to write a book is to get transcripts to a ton of content and upload that to AI asking for a summary in book format under X number of pages. You can thank me later. Kinda. So if you go to upload a book to Amazon, they have an AI detector, kind of like the college professors are using to figure out if their students used AI. Can you use it to correct some grammar? Sure. But if you say, produce this, you're going to create 3 times the work because of the editing you would have to do. But AI is not going to replace people. People who use AI is going to replace people, whether it's at your job, at your work, and creative things like YouTube or books. Totally agree. We're getting there. We're getting to the point where that's going to happen. We're getting to the point where you're going to be able to open up an AI chatbot and say, make me a movie based on the first Dragonlance novel. And in 30 seconds, you could start watching it. Just bought my one rental at a time ticket. See you all there, Jason. I will see you there. Looking forward to it. I'm hoping to be able to sign some books there. Freedom Works, long live stretchy shirt. Exactly. That's what it's called. Stretchy shirt. Sometimes we wear the stretchy shirts. It's for fun. Angry Capitalist, build a war chest. Absolutely. It's a good title for a video. Deconstructing Dreams, a financial journey. Thank you for the idea, Angry Capitalist. I like it. Taking tomorrow off to go to a city planning commission meeting regarding ADUs, getting close to having an ordinance signed so we can start building them here in Reno. Awesome. Good luck with it. I hope it goes well. Make sure you are watching Derek, that ADU guy. His actual channel is much bigger than mine now. He's got some great information for those people who want to build or use ADUs. And his YouTube channel is That ADU Guy. Master Coach University. Howdy. Section 8 tenant at premium rent, but we opted to take responsibility for the utilities. They're costing lots more than usual. Any recourse to reduce, even though we agreed. Yes, consent is golden. Next year, change the lease. Lease renewal is your time to fix that. You can ask to change it between now and then. More than likely, they're going to say no, and you can't force them to say no. You could do something like, hey, if we lowered your rent $50, but that's Section 8, they wouldn't care. give you access to the short storage shed. Would you take the utilities? You can, what do you call it? Compromise. But my time to fix utility problems is at lease renewal. You might be effed for the remainder of this lease. At lease renewal, say, I'm not renewing a lease unless utilities are included in the tenant's expense. And or, let me think this through. So I'm giving you clarity here because I have a tenant that is Section 8. Section 8 says they can't pay the utilities. So we raise the rent based on their suggestion to include the amount of the utility cost. The rent can. So, but then again, you come into what is their cap? Are there a shortage of units? How high are they willing to go? Yep. New lease, try to negotiate. David McNeeley. A new book is impressive. My brother said something positive. Someone stole my brother's phone. Track him down. Howdy, David. We need to get you back in the video. Freedom Works. DSCR loans normally require 6 to 12 months of ownership seasoning. That has not been my experience because I was using them to buy. DSCR loans can be used at the end of a BRRRR, but I was using them to buy, which meant I might need clarity on what you're saying there. Are you saying that you have to have experience as an owner before they'll give you a DSCR loan on something else? Maybe. Freedom Works. Long live stretchy pants. You got the reference way before I even made it. I like it. Retard simply means hindered. It means held back. To be held back. Yes. Because my friend Brian is actually mentally held back. And if somebody called him a tard, they would have issues. Angry capitalist. Her Majesty Kathy, the chief Karen, tried that. We don't say the R word. I generally don't, although I'll say it in a video to get people's attention and to make a joke. I am not one for restricting language. I've been around people who say, well, you can't use the word hate. That's too strong. No, no, no. There's things I hate. You talk at a movie theater, a special place in hell for you. I hate those people. B staff. Okay, just emailed you more data. Thanks. I could temporarily move in with my dad a few months until I find a tri or quad. Maybe just need to know which would cost me more money. You're the best. Thank you. In your search, while you're looking for small multifamily, try not to fall into the trap of duplex, triplex, or fourplex. Also include in your search with your agent, house with an ADU. Because we get stuck as investors thinking of an ADU like there's a law coming. We can now add ADUs. People have been able to do ADUs in some areas for decades. And when they could, it had to be behind the primary house. It had to be smaller than the primary house. It had to be 1,200 or 1,300 square feet or less. Like all these restrictions. So we think ADU, tiny back house. I have a house that's a house with an ADU. It's a 2,500 square foot house and a 2-bedroom each side duplex on one property. I never would have got it if I was only looking for duplex, triplex, or fourplex because it didn't show up. It showed up as house with ADU. Some amazing deals out there are hidden. And we can't control what the listing agent is going to call an ADU. Most of us right now can have an argument. Is it auxiliary dwelling unit or is it uh, accessory dwelling unit? Because depending on what part of the country you're in, they call it different things. Granny flat, mother-in-law house, DADU, detached, junior, JADU. Your search should include all of the colloquialisms that could be used to look at more deals. And then you eliminate the ones that don't make sense. Dave, bust it out. Was not expecting that. Good. Thank you. See, that's the point. That's why you say stupid things sometimes. It's a risk. There's somebody out there whose family doesn't use the R word and they heard me say it and they're like, I'm out of here. But then there's the normal people that scare me. Normal people don't know to step to the side when the stuff's about to hit the fan. Fatih, howdy. Everyone, I am just off work and starting the stream from the beginning. I hope everyone is having an amazing evening. And then Delroy Samuels took back a message to make me wonder again forever and ever what was happening. What was said, what do your kids think about your book? My son did an Instagram post saying, the funniest thing about growing up so poor is having a dad who can write stuff in a book that people want to know about money. Something like that. It was brilliant. because I didn't start investing till I was 40. So he lived through the super frugal, not on purpose, but because of situation lifestyle. To now know that he's just waiting for dad to pass away so he can inherit a few $1 million. My socialist daughter, probably not so happy with me making money off of capitalism. You make a couple of bucks every time somebody buys a book. That's evil. My other daughter, I think, is probably going to be the only one that really gets into real estate and rentals, and she's probably going to buy it and read it. She's probably going to listen to it on Audible. Weirdest thing, coolest compliment as a dad. Can I say this without stupid emotions in my voice? So I'm talking to my daughter. This is the one we hang out every now and then. We watch scary movies. Something we've done since she was a kid. So probably every couple of weeks, maybe. I told her the book was coming out. And she goes, "Oh, you're going to do an Audible?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm probably going to do an Audible." It was really hard because I did two other Audible books. And she said, "No kidding, this is hard to say." She goes, "I know. You did one rental at a time and 15 conversations with real estate millionaires because I listen to them when I fall asleep, and it reminds me of you reading a book to me when I was a kid," which is really cool. It's a good thing she doesn't watch my content because you're not supposed to have those emotions. So that's what my kids think of the book. I don't think the other two will ever read it. Brian P. Buy your book. Don't plan to read it because I am also lazy. I'll wait for the Audible version and listen. There you go. That's probably what she's going to do. Thanks for all the content and knowledge over the years. Nice. Jen, howdy. First time catching this. Congrats on the book. Thank you. Hopefully you come back for more lives and you see that there is a ton of people with this is what I wish. Zuber did this for a while on one rental at a time, and now he just does it in the school community. But I think there's value in there's somebody watching this who will never comment, who will never like, who will never subscribe. They're just not that way on YouTube. But someone else is going to ask a question that solves their problem. That's pretty cool. Larry, a published book and slide presentation. Are you sure you're lazy? Yes. I'm so lazy, I wanted to make two videos at once. So the beginning of this video was recorded separately. So I can release it as that's you got, if you want to find the easiest way to do something, ask a lazy person. And the reason the book is 486 pages is so that everything I wanted to write is in there and I don't have to write a second. That's the lazy way. Dark Spring. Sorry not to take this on a tangent, but you can technically play with a created party, just have friends co-op. Yes, it's got to jailbreak the game. I love it. It's a good game, good graphics, good story. I it's a, how do you fit this nerdy in there? I'm a solo player MMORPG player. Like I want to play WoW, but don't talk to me. I want to play all these other games, but don't talk to me. I would play Skyrim, but you are too solo. Baldur's Gate 3, Grey Cane. It's actually one that my daughter plays a ton of. Delroy, did you take back another message? That's messed up. Gotta get sleep sometime. Rictavius Anderson. Hello, Mr. Anderson. I know I've been gone for a while. I will be back soon on a more regular basis. I'll give you an update. I got a new tenant in the property. That bought increased it from 800 to 1300. Increased it from 800 to 1300. Did you use the binder strategy or did you just raise it? That's cool. Congratulations. Freedom Works. Are we allowed to retard the ignition timing on the engine we are tuning up? Yes. And are you not allowed to use your retarder on your truck when you're coming down a hill? I can't use that word. Yeah, there's every joke that comes to mind is inappropriate. Something's wrong with me. Only fires can be retarded. There you go. Be staff. Oh, that was sweet of your daughter to say that to you. It was. I do. Scuba diving is hard. Scuba diving is hard in some areas. Why am I getting a spam risk during a live stream? I got the call today. So there's two new scams going around. The first one is you receive a package at your door of some little tchotchke and it's a gift. And it says to register your gift to activate your device, Use this QR code. And you scan the QR code, it gives full access to your phone to the scammers. That's the first one. The second one, they call you. This is mostly targeted in Washington. Maybe it's happening in other states. But you get a phone call from a, caller ID block number, or they spoof. It'll say Pierce County Sheriff's Department. They call and they say, you owe a fine because you were subpoenaed to be a witness in a court case 6 to 9 months ago. Here's your ad. They list your address. They know enough about you to do that because they bought your data somewhere. And they say you can pay the fine on the phone, or it goes from civil to criminal, and then you can be arrested. Pretty detailed, pretty official sounding. And the way they have you pay is just a ripoff. So got that call today, literally the sheriff's department. And I was like, huh. Here's a couple qualifying questions, and they hung up on me. So, classic Cummins for engine retarders. Exactly. Oh, my first truck was a logging truck, 10-inch straight retarder. I used to wake the bears up in the mountains. Good. Frank, howdy. Bought your book today. Should be here Saturday. Awesome. I just purchased the property across the street for 200,000. It's a 1-3. It is 1/3 of an acre and has an old house, low ceilings, and double wide mobile home on it. Nice. Really cool thing, Frank, before you spend a bunch of money fixing everything up and making it all nice and shiny. My brother bought his first property, which was a triplex. And one of the houses was occupied. One was so bad he left it vacant for like 5 years, right? It was just that bad. And the other one needed a bunch of work. My dad came to look at the properties, and my dad's never owned a property. I was 17 years old when I got a social security number. All my siblings got the same day because I was joining the Marines, and they were like, "Hey, none of your kids have ever been registered anywhere." One we was born in a car. I was born in a dentist's office. Like weird family, off the books stuff that I don't even normally talk about on YouTube. I blame the water. That makes my eyes water. And my dad was looking at my brother's new rental. My brother was in his 20s and he was super proud. He just closed on a triplex. And my dad was trying to insult him. And he said, "Man, people will rent anything." Trying to say, look at how bad the shape these places are in. And my brother looked around. Yeah, you're right. They'll rent anything. So when it comes to the rentals, I don't want class A. I don't want class B. I don't want super fancy. I want class C. Safe, functional, and clean. So when you go to fix up that mobile home, you can fix up mobile homes almost no matter how bad they are. Uh, Based on what rents are, that might be a great deal. Right across the street might make it a little easier to do some of the work. Hopefully, you don't fall into the trap of doing all of the work yourself. But yeah, I rented out the mobile home for 1,550 and hope to get $1,000 a month for the house after renovations. Doesn't sound like a bad deal. Then it comes down to, is there parking? Is there washer dryer hookups? Can you fence off the yard separately for pets? I mean, there's a way to turn this into the lazy landlord's way. Like there's a chapter in the book, Lazy Landlord Strategies. I think that's what it's called. That's how much information is in there. I don't even remember what the chapters are called. Lazy Landlord somethings. It's not fair. Should know my own book. Systems. That's why the word wasn't sticking in my head. How do I take 2 hours a month to manage all of my rentals? That's one of the reasons is I target rentals that will have low tenant turnover. And so you can do those things. If you can fence off the yards to give them places for their pets, allow pets. It's hard to find a place that allows pets, and you'll have less tenant turnover because even if the human moves with the pet, it's an animal relocation, right? So congratulations. Based on everything else that makes it a good deal or a bad deal. I mean, if you live across the street, it's probably in somewhere that's not a terrible location. You're willing to live close to it. So awesome. Flavio, when I see you, I want to sign my book with the Spanish phrase that, you're just saying sure. I will definitely sign it with, I will not say it again to offend the people because the R word offended people earlier. And if some people out there speak Spanish and I say the phrase, I speak Spanish like somebody who grew up in Southern California. So I got to Colombia and realized I didn't speak Spanish, but I do know that phrase. And if you remind me, I will put it in your book. It'd be great. Money. I heard Meet Kevin got a call from a Nigerian prince. Kevin sold him his course. That's either the greatest dad joke ever, or it probably worked. Because the other day, uh, I'm not going to say what it was that I called because I called a place for a service because I own rentals. And I said, I need to verify something. During the call, the person was verifying something for all of my properties and they started asking me questions and they bought the course. So it wasn't quite a Nigerian prince win at a distance, but that was pretty cool. Steve, when listing for a new tenant, do you place a deadline on the application period? How do you determine when to close the application period? Looking for a certain number of apps or the right tenant. So it is the right tenant before I won't close the application down. I've never done a time limit. I I have I have offered recently to correct some people, not correct, that's the wrong term. Offer some insight into what you can put into your listings that people weren't. Most people list a rental listing the way an owner thinks. Here's an image of the front. What is the square footage? When was the building built? Maybe what school district is it in? But here's I'm gonna teach you something right now. If you're making a listing, no, I should probably do that I'll do that as a separate video. Tenants think completely different than we do. When you list it, what's close to it? How far is the freeway? What colleges, the hospital, arts, what museums, what parks, what theaters are within a mile or two? If you're not putting that in your listing in bullet form, why would any tenant look at it? If your listing is in a paragraph, and if there's anybody in the chat who thinks I'm talking about them, I'm not, because this is at least 20 people in the last couple of weeks. Your listing should be what gets people's eyes on the listing, not what delivers the information you think the tenant needs. It's what the tenant doesn't even know they want. They're looking for a rental in a place they might not even know that theater exists. And you're only a couple of miles from it. Or the farmer's market, or the whatever else is in the listing that you can now put there in bullet form. So for me, I do that listing, and I didn't in the beginning. I learned these things from the lumberjack landlord, right? What is in the area that's more attractive than your property? And then target the things of your property that are attractive. Like maybe the front picture is not a picture of the front of the house. Maybe the front picture is a picture of your kitchen because it's really nice, or some amenity, or the parking, or the view. Like if I list my property here, where there's videos that I do from outside, I'm looking at 260-degree water view. That's the listing. That's not the picture of the property. So you get enough demand. And then, so here, let me just run you through, Steve. This is how it goes when I list a property. Because the idea is to keep tenants that are going to be there long term and to not create tenant turnover with my existing tenants. So I list the property. I put in all the details of other things that a tenant might want that are more than just the property. It doesn't say a date. It says clearly, this is the credit score I want, no evictions. You're still going to get people that don't look at that and they apply and they have a 480 credit score. And it's just a waste of time. And then I respond to everybody who inquires. Thank you for your interest. I will be doing a open house showing Thursday from 5 to 7 or Saturday from 3 to 5, whatever time works for you, once or twice. I've got other interest in the property. The listing will stay listed. This is in my canned response. The listing will stay listed until somebody has paid the deposit and secured the location. The reason I do open house isn't for what most investors immediately say to me. They go, "Oh yeah, you do open house. That creates demand. It shows scarcity. It says other people want it, so I'm going to pay for it." No, that is a byproduct of the real goal. I own almost all single family or almost all small multifamily. I have one single family house that I had a decade before I was an investor. All the rest are duplex, triplex, or fourplex, which means I have existing tenants. And I'm going to be putting a tenant next to them. So my screening is, for me, I want a good credit score. I want no eviction history. When I meet for the open house format and I have multiple people show up and multiple people not show up who asked 10 different questions and paid the application fee for Zillow or whatever platform they found it on, because I use Hemlane and that puts it out on 15 different platforms, and they don't show up, but everybody shows up at the same time. Part of my test for tenancy is how do they interact with the other tenants? Anybody can put their best foot forward and be nice to you. They can say, yes, sir, no, sir, uh, be super polite. But when one tenant or applicant shows up and another one shows up, were they cordial? Did they politely step back, let the other person have their look at the place, or stay back out of hearing distance to let the conversation happen between me and them? Were they rude? Because whoever I put in that unit is going to impact the other tenants in the other units. It's an intangible part of the criteria to get the property. So then I tell everybody who is interested, the first person to secure it by applying, being told they're qualified, and paying the deposit, which is non-refundable. I just say that. I have no idea. I'd have to look at the laws. I've never had anybody back out after paying the deposit. I'd probably just give it back to them and relist it. Might charge a holding fee if I ever had it. I don't know if I'd be that petty. Depends on how they interacted with me, I guess. Uh, as soon as the deposit's paid, I've received deposit through Zelle. Most landlords will want a cashier's check or what's the other thing? Money order, so it can't be taken back. I haven't gone that far. I'm okay with Zelle. I generally won't do Venmo or Apple Pay or any of those other ways that I'll take rent for the first payment. I want something that's a little harder to get taken back. Once the deposit's paid and they've secured it and we've signed a lease, then I take it down. So there's no time limit, but it's depending on your market and how high you set your rent and how much demand there is for the type of rental that you have, you might have to tweak that a little bit for your specific situation. All-nighter hider, they're really a special place for those that create personal victims by way of theft. Yes, agreed. Rick Tavius, I attempted the binder. They did not want to an increase, so I had tenant changeover. In the book, what if the binder strategy fails? That's the best outcome. There's actually a section in the binder chapter that talks about what if it fails, and that's the best outcome. I want to use the binder because I want to sleep at night knowing I'm a decent, ethical human being, and I didn't just raise the rent on somebody more than they can afford, and I didn't just kick them out. I went to them and I said, hey, here's what the area average rents are. Here's what you're paying. What do you think is fair? If they thought an increase was unfair, I have had it happen once. They were two remote workers, and they're like, nah, we're just not going to stay where the rent's going up. We're going to move to where it's cheaper. Great. They moved out. I added a closet to a den. Now it's a 3-bedroom. Rent's $1,000 more than it was. Ton of demand for it because I'm still below area average. I got a massive rent increase. They get to save money somewhere else. The best outcome for the binder strategy is if it fails. The second best is I got a rent increase, didn't have to do a tenant turnover, didn't have to rehab a unit, didn't feel like I kicked a tenant out of their house. So the second best outcome is the most common use of the binder, but it is possible that they just move out. And I'm not going to say that's what I hope for every time. Christopher Ramsey, dad win. Shit, I'm impressed with my kids. But that one daughter, that's the one that is also the one that had the nanosecond of genius where she said, it's really hard to make a decision when both outcomes are positive. And I've used that in every aspect of life, from like law enforcement to management at the CDL school to owning rentals to doing YouTube. She's amazeballs. B staff, what is the difference between Class C and Class B properties? Good question. So really there's 4 that I go with that most people do. Brandon Turner from BiggerPockets did a really good write-up. If you just Google Brandon Turner class of properties A, B, C, or D, so he's more detailed in there. So this is my butchered version of that I use because I specifically want Class C. Class A, super high end, expensive. Your refrigerator's at least $3,000, possibly gated community. Single family. Maybe there's Class A townhomes if they have the right amenities or apartments, but you're thinking your McMansions or whatever. Class D is your war zone, right? The cops can't go there alone. You don't want to send a handyman. You can't go there and collect rent. You're going to have a ton of turnover. So I don't want to own in the war zone, and I don't want to own in luxury because during luxury in 2009, luxury took such a hit that if you look at all the data, it looks like rents went down, but they didn't. Not market wide. There were some markets, Silicon Valley with the dot-com crash, rents tanked. All the car manufacturers move away from Detroit, rents tank. Sure, I get it. Locally, things can happen, but market wide, rents have never gone down for Class C properties. When all of the foreclosures happened and all of the people lost their house, millions of people were going through foreclosures, they became renters. They didn't go rent in Class A. And homeowners didn't go move into the trailer park of nightmares, right? There are good trailer parks, but there's Class D trailer parks too. They went out and found the working class places. Now, people with $150,000 dual incomes went out and found Class B properties. Again, could be gated communities, could have, the HOA with a pool, whatever. They were really nice. Not quite luxury, but really nice. Nice neighborhoods. I don't want good school districts. Class B neighborhoods tend to be in good school districts. But Class C is where do the average workers in your area that are decent people live? They make 30 to $90,000 a year, depending on the state that you're in. They pay their bills on time. Their yards are kept clean. Their vehicles might be 10, 15 years old, but they're upkept. They're not on blocks. Uh, three more payments, and that's my shooting car. You have Class C tenants. For me, I've got cops, I've got nurses, I've got military, I've got, do I have a teacher? I had a teacher. I know I had a teacher, but I think she's the one that inherited a house. So I don't have a teacher anymore. But Class C is decent neighborhoods. It's safe. It might not be the best school district. It might not have all of the best amenities. Uh, but that's kind of the ratio. So I don't want luxury. I don't want war zone, and I don't want nice and fancy. I want Class C because when the bad economic times come, there will be more demand on my rentals. And if a tenant doesn't pay, I got a $1,300 to $1,800 mortgage. It's not a $5,000 mortgage on a Class A property going through a 9-month eviction, like the guy in Seattle that had, $4,000 a month mortgage and he went through almost a 2-year eviction. No thanks. It's an actual real story. There were protesters protesting the tenant because he got so much notoriety from it. Hope that helps, B staff, but that's Class C. Gio Cotero took back a message to make me lose sleep and wonder forever and ever what was said. Nalinka, any course call tonight? No, we did a course call every week for July. We take August off. There'll be a course call every week for September, and we'll take October off, then November, rinse, repeat every other month. Gives people a chance for their portfolios to advance. And sometimes because we have guests come and talk during the course call, but also there's the next one. I don't know if there's going to be as many guests as there's going to be some of the instructional stuff. Negotiation, communications, things that really come into play once you're under contract with the property. So expect that in September. There will be this weekend a members only call where we learn the strategy of analyzing a deal, which is not just the math. It is the math, but it is also 95% of other things. B staff. Also, it was funny when you said you got into this because you saw your kids starve out their dog with floor cereal. Uh, goldfish that's dead. Yes. I don't want my kids taking care of me when I'm too old to work. I want to have enough money to pay a paid professional. I have seen how it went with pets. Angry capitalist. I missed a super chat. I am so sorry. Those years ago, right? I missed two. Stephen D, welcome to Someday. Stephen, I will explain after this angry capitalist thing what it is to be a member. The 35 to 45-year-old single millennial pet parent demographic gold mine and my new target renter after listening to this channel. Yeah. The single millennial pet parent. I love the pet parent. I'm not sure if I've targeted single. I do have a lot of single. That's weird. Huh. Do I have any couples? I have one. I have two. Okay. All right. I'm not subconsciously discriminating against married people. It scared me for a second. Uh, yeah, no, I target people with pets, people that have an average income. Yep. Cool. Thank you. And then Stephen D on becoming a member. This is what the members calls are. And the reason I do it with a member. First, we all jump on Zoom together. You don't have to. It's also live on YouTube. You can ask questions on YouTube if you don't want to be on Zoom. But it's on Zoom, so I put it behind the members thing because there's like a couple dollar paywall to keep out the bots and the trolls, right? The crash bros aren't going to come in there and yell during my Zoom meeting because they don't want to spend money because they have to make money off of their videos. What we do is analyze a deal. It takes 35 to 45 minutes to go through the details of this is how you analyze a deal. There's actually a section in the book, the way to analyze a deal based on these members calls. And what we do is live, we preferably look at somebody's deal that somebody brings and sends us a link to. We share the screen, we look at the listing. If nobody brings one, we'll look at one of mine. The reason I don't want to look at one of mine is because I'm not actively in buy mode yet. I will be soon, but I'm not now. And I don't want to look because I'll probably find a deal and I'll want to buy it. And I'm lazy. And I'm in stabilization mode, not growth mode. So make sure you know where you're at. Uh, Retired mode, kickback mode. My brother yells at me because I'm too lazy mode. Definitely. Uh, when we look at a deal, I get so many people that will say in the chat, and I appreciate these questions because they're a good, valid question to learn how this works too, because the math is very important. It's not something you practice until you get it right. You practice the math until you can't get it wrong. So you want to get this right. People will say, I bought it for this amount. This is how much I make, or this is the rents, or this is my yield. Is this a good deal? Right? It's not always a question. Sometimes it's a statement, but when it's a question, I can't answer because math is a part of the equation. Is it in a safe neighborhood? What's around it? Is there something with a strong smell or a loud noise? Right? We go to the map, zoom out. What do you see? 2, 3, 4 blocks away. You can actually look on the map and see a water treatment center, a mushroom plant, mushroom farm, strip club. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'll have to ask AI later because I've always wondered what happens in those places. And then you go to the street view and you look, what does this neighborhood look like? Oh, are there bars on all the windows? Then you go back and you look at the description. So I haven't even looked at any pictures yet. I haven't run the math because the time it takes to run the math will take up all your time. If you have 10 to 30 minutes a day to look at deals, we want to make sure you're being productive. So first we're looking at identifying what it is. What am I looking at? Is this a house, duplex, house with ADU, need a lot of work, needs no work? Pictures look sketchy. Does it look like a scam? Is it a real listing? How did I find this? What is the age of the building? Is there lead paint, asbestos worries? When were updates done? Maybe look at the description a little, but understand that that's all just like pro forma. Pro forma in translation means made up bull dookie. That's a very technical term. They can say whatever they want. There's actually a caveat in there saying, hey, you have to verify. It's your job to do due diligence to make sure that everything that we made up here was real. Then we'll go through and we'll make sure that it doesn't have any of the disqualifiers, like being in an HOA. For me, disqualifiers are also short sales or foreclosures. Uh, Then we might go to the math and we might go to the pictures, depending on what we're looking at. We go to the pictures we verified. Does it actually show me washer dryer hookups in each unit? What does the parking look like for the strategy that I'm trying to use? Right? If it's a duplex and there's one parking spot, that ain't going to work. Right? If it's a house that's been Frankensteined into a duplex and it only has one parking spot, that actually stopped Chester, the wealth building journey, from buying a couple of deals because he had the right number of bedrooms and the right number of bathrooms to do rent by the room, but there was 1 or 2 parking spots. That don't work. Then we do the math. And the cash on cash return on investment is a simple math equation that is very complicated, but it's simple. It is annual profit divided by cost to acquire. But knowing what the cost to acquire is not just the down payment, it's closing costs, money for immediate repairs. The annual profit is not just the money that comes in, and it's not just the money that comes in after the mortgage, because you also have to set aside money for future expenses, like a roof in 15 years. So we go through all of that in the members only calls over and over. We do it 2 times a month, at least 2 times a month, to learn the skill, to practice. And as you're a member now, so Stephen D, now that you're a member, if you go back to my YouTube channel after this live is over and you look at the members only list, there's every video that we've ever done. So you can go back and watch 5 or 10 of those and get the idea of what is it like to learn the skill. So you don't even have to wait for the next one. You can actually go back now and watch all those old videos on the members only stuff. Fatih, PowerPoint slides were a nice touch. Thank you. I had some free time because my stupid Dungeons and Dragons online game was down today. Uh, Olinka, I changed my list to downtown area and walk trails more applicants. There you go. Nice. Gio Cotero, about to be divorced. Congratulations. Sincerely, I've never met anybody in my entire life whose life didn't get better after a divorce. A divorce doesn't mean a good marriage is ending. A divorce means a bad one is. So congratulations. It might have been good at one point in time, but it was bad, and that's why the divorce happened. She's keeping the home, have 2 small kids. I want to retire early, been investing stocks in Bitcoin, and will keep portfolio, but currently living with my parents. I'm 40, advice to retire. That is the position I was in. This is literally, if you read the back of the book, I was 40. Single parent with three kids. I found out about, so here's the breakdown, just to let you know you're not alone in how the world can treat you sometimes when life kicks you in the teeth. She had created $313,000 in bad debt. She's a freaking genius at the rollover method or whatever. Personal loans, renting an apartment at a party apartment in another town that I didn't know we had for a couple of years and not paying on it the last couple. So there was all this debt. I negotiated with the mortgage. The reason I bring the real amount in is because you can learn from this. I negotiated with each one. I was talking to one of the lenders and he just kind of casually mentioned, "Hey, your ex filed bankruptcy. That makes, this is a community property state. All this debt's your debt now. Uh, do you plan on filing bankruptcy too?" At the time, I had just been laid off from law enforcement, and I was thinking if I go back into law enforcement, I can't do bankruptcy because that's cop killer. It's career killer. You're too likely to take a bribe. So it's off the table. And I almost said, no, I'm not going to do bankruptcy, which would have changed my entire life. The guy on the phone, the woman on the phone, spoke before I did because we'd be willing to take 20% of what you owe. I was like, you what? Yeah, if you commit to paying it, we'll take 20% and forgive the rest. And I was like, all right. So I went through and I called every single one of them. First of all, who are you? Why do I owe you money? Second, if I was considering bankruptcy, which I did, it's not a lie. I considered it. I'm not saying that I dismissed it because I might go back to law enforcement, but if I'm considering bankruptcy, what is the smallest percentage that you would take if I commit to paying that back? And the 313,000 turned into 89,000. Still a lot, but it was, not so I want to taste my gun, suicidal, bad stuff. $89,000 I can handle. So I was in a lot of bad debt. I started teaching at a CDL school, making $17 an hour, and I had the three kids to raise. The first thing I did, like you living with your parents, genius move, reduce or eliminate your living expense. I mean, so living with your parents can be rough. Family sucks as much as we love them, but you don't want to live with them usually. It's a good move doing that and understanding because every town has what you call the divorce hub. In Tumwater, Washington, it's Brittany Lane on top of a hill. There's all these apartments and they're all full of all the divorced people. In Roy, Washington, it's a trailer park where all the divorced people live. So there's an area where everybody goes, spends all their money right after their divorce. But if you live with your parents, start saving, right? Increase your income, decrease your expenses, work out all the things with the divorce. You're not in buy mode right now. The two things that tell you when to buy is, are you ready? And did you find a great deal? Part of are you ready is you're not going through something like birth, death, divorce, or something that's going to take your focus away from making smart decisions. But you can learn to save and work on your credit score. So right now, focus on bettering your life. How can you increase your credit score? Watch tons of videos, ask for credit limitation increases. Don't use more of the credit so your credit utilization goes down. Make sure all your payments are automated so you don't have late payments. How can you reduce your expenses living with your parents, not eating out? Don't go on dates. It's okay to not go on dates for a while. Uh, Start hitting the 3 year mark. You might have problems, but it is also okay to be happy single. Increase your income. Is it side hustle? Is it overtime? Hell, work might take your mind off of what you're going through. Pay attention to your kids. They're going to remember this. And it's important that they know that they have two parents who love them. Don't say anything bad about your ex in front of them ever, even when they're in their 20s or 30s. That is your job now. Your official job was to make sure half of your kids made it to 18. So hopefully you're going to do that. But your kid's self esteem is going to come from them knowing both of their parents are good people. So who cares what she says about you? Doesn't matter. You be the positive voice. Be the example your kids want by getting your finances taken care of. At least focus on that. So as you learn to save, that's increasing your income, decreasing your expenses, and you're working on your credit score. Eventually, when you go to buy a house, right? Because if you get custody or if you get visitation or however it goes with your kids, whatever your parenting plan becomes, bringing them to the grandparents' house won't always be optimum. And eventually, you're going to want your own space. How many millions of families live in apartments? Try not to think you're better than millions of families. And you say, I can't house hack because I have kids. The kids are the reason why you might want to consider this. It's why I did it. I moved into an apartment. My son was excited. He said, "You want to move to where all the girls live? Let's go." My daughter, one of them was like the one was like, "I get to be the new girl? Oh man, let's go." My other daughter just hates everything. But she's probably my youngest daughter is the most like me, I think. I don't know if that's good or bad. Um, so if you can think of a house hack, you might buy a house with an ADU. So you don't even have to have people living near your kids. It's just like having a neighbor, but you get to screen them. Maybe you could buy a duplex. Instead of buying a house in a year or two, as you get back on your feet, as you've fixed your credit and you've fixed your savings and you get your mind right, you go and buy a duplex. And your kids can come, or you can live at the duplex. I lived in the duplex with my kids. Have your own fenced yard, get a side by side, not over under, keep them separate from your tenants. Keep your living expenses low while getting on the property ladder. It might take a couple of years. When I started at 40, I didn't close on a duplex until 43. 2013, I got a duplex. The next one wasn't until 2015. So in 4 years, I got two things. But if I didn't get those two things, I'd be working today. It's 5 years of suck. Those first 5 years are slow. The next 5 years, the income snowball starts to kick in. You have chance to do rent increases. You might own more than one property. You might be able to raise your deductible as you have more reserves. You can have a larger deductible on your insurance, so your insurance premiums on your houses can be lower. You can increase your income without raising rents. You can learn things like the binder strategy and get your tenants to raise the rent for you. At 6 to 8 years, you'll have 3 or 4 properties if you're doing duplex, triplex, or fourplex with multiple tenants. By 10 years, when you're 50, you never have to work again. And right now, if you don't buy houses, if you don't buy an investment, it could be stocks, it could be crypto, it could be any asset class that you choose and master. I just will go for real estate because it's where I went, because I wasn't making a lot and I didn't have decades for compound interest to do its thing, so stocks were out. And there's geese, gooses. Shut up. Thanks. I don't want to create generational wealth. I don't want my kids to inherit millions. They will. It's like an accident. What I want is you're 40 right now. What happens if you turn 60 and your health is, for some reason, you're unable to work? And so your kids have to take care of you. My biggest fear when I was 40, other than dating, was what if I become a financial burden to my kids when I'm too old to work? That motivated me to invest. Like choose stocks, choose crypto, choose real estate, choose one, master it. Once you have wealth and you have millions in net worth, now pick a little bit and diversify. Don't diversify to get there. Focus to get there, then diversify to protect it. With a little over $3 million in net worth, I'm not even at the diversification stage yet. I'm still focused on the one asset class that I mastered. So then when you're 50, you can keep working. Maybe you love your job. Maybe it's good for you. Maybe you identify with it, whatever. But now you're not going to become a financial burden to your kids if you can't work because you're financially free after a decade. Maybe you retire at 50 and like me, I just travel and scuba dive, chase good weather and good scuba, warm weather. That's kind of what I like to put together. Although I've dove in some cold places too, which is okay. I just don't like dry suits. I'm lazy. Uh, so there's your 10 years spelt out. It's going to suck from 40 to 45. This is the 5 years of suck, no matter what asset class you choose. And if you don't choose an asset class, it's going to suck too. The difference is if you choose an asset class, the next 5 years are going to suck. And then the next 5 years are going to be freaking amazing, followed by decades of whatever you want. If you don't choose an asset class, you're going to have 5 years of suck on repeat. I hope that helps. And I hope you weren't insulted by me saying congratulations, because it's honestly how I feel. People can stay happily married, great. But when somebody gets divorced, that's an awesome thing for them. Oliver, howdy. Once you have a tenant move in, do you have them complete a property condition checklist? And if so, how do you usually have them fill it out? Nope, too much work. I take a video with the tenant during lease signing or during lease renewal or whatever. Here is the current state of the property. When you walk through and you just say, grab your phone, do the same thing I am. We're here today. We're taking a thing. It'll show you any damage that's here. We'll be able to go back, zoom the video in and say, yep, that window wasn't actually broken 4 years ago when you moved in here. But no, I've not done a paper checklist, just a video. Email the video to your tenant or have them email it to you. Emails are admissible in court. Thank you, Fatih. B staff. I have a tenant in a 3-bedroom, my only 3-bedroom unit. I've threatened eviction because underpaying, but what's worse in your opinion? Keeping Great tenant for turnover losing 2 to 3 months of rent. I get it. If they don't pay every single penny, a penny of the rent out, it's a lease violation. Not doing it. If I had a Section 8 tenant that was paying $8 a month and the housing authority was paying $2,192 a month and the tenant didn't pay their eight, I'd kick them the hell out. If a tenant's rent is late, I start the eviction process the day after the service as a favor to them. So if your tenant's not paying the full amount and you serve them and you go, hey, look, I'm serving you, this starts the 14-day pay or quit. Know your laws. There's some FHA laws that might need to be 30-day pay or quit, depending on the state you're in. Know your local laws. Never trust a random guy on YouTube. Thank you, Josh Breet, for that. But as soon as you say the rent is $1,000 and they pay you $999 and you don't take action, your lease is void. You're not holding them to the lease on something. You can't hold them to the lease on anything. So now you can't take action on breaking the law, noise complaints, too many vehicles, too many people living there. The lease is there to protect the tenants. You can't turn off the power. You can't remove the door. You can't spray bear spray on everything. You can't shut off the utilities. But the lease is also there to protect you, and only if you treat it like a contract. So it's a good question. And I understand it sucks when like it's happened and you're like in the process now. They've been 3 months and they've already kind of set the pattern. Go serve it and say, hey, this has to be complete. This is what you owe. It has to be paid by the first of next month. Here's your 14-day pay or quit. As soon as you're paid in full, we'll throw this away. You don't even have to pay just go to AI and say, I live in this state, in this county, in this town. Please make sure you're not breaking any of the fair housing laws, but I need an eviction notice, a 14-day, 30-day, whatever. I just did this for my brother yesterday because he's got a tenant that is not paying. And the reason you want to serve them with eviction things is because there is rental assistance programs out there that will help people if they're in a situation where that little bit of money actually matters, but they won't talk to them until they've been served. You can explain it to the tenant. Now, don't go to the tenants and say, "Don't pay your rent. I'd like to serve you so we can go get your rent paid by somebody else." That's fraud, right? But if they're late and you serve them, you can then tell them, hey, I'm serving you as a favor. You're not paying your rent in full, which means I think you're having money problems. And now that you've been served, which it's official, because here's a picture of me serving it to you, you can go and talk to the rent relief agencies and possibly get some help with this. And that'll snap them out of it because you are taking action. I hope that helps. Ace Grooms, howdy. Congrats on the book. Thank you. Is shiny for the Firefly fans out there, which is where that's from, by the way. B Staff, actually, that's a gift from my daughter. I divorced two and estranged from my oldest kids, which is what family court does to men. If I can get child support to stop stealing from me, I'd be vacationing with Dion in Portugal. Yeah, the divorce thing is rough. I was on the other end, got custody, never got the child support. I'm great at keeping custody. I went through it 3 different times. One time went the same because got custody, went to Desert Storm. And when you're at war, you're not allowed to take your kids with you. So really weird. Give the kid back. That's how old I am, if you're wondering. Uh, and then came back and won custody again, and then won custody in another divorce. I almost want to make a channel on here is how you keep custody of your kids because it's kindergarten simple. Guy or girl, doesn't matter. Ninja Vanish, howdy. I just got my financial freedom book delivered from Amazon. Awesome. Looking forward to your 5-star review. I appreciate every single one of those. Peace out. Too late about truth mouthing my ex-wife. Yeah, work on it. It's a challenge sometime. I even try to do it here. Like when I made the very first video on how you can end up $98,000 in debt without knowing it. I made a very clear point at the beginning of the video to say it takes 2 people to mess up a relationship. Like it still has to be a thing. No matter how old the kids get. Angry capitalist. Geo, if you are the sort of person who wants, needs socialization, free and healthy social clubs, walking, hiking, book clubs, gardening, talking my uncle through this, and it's really helping him. That is brilliant advice. A lot of people join the softball team in their area if you're 40. That's kind of a really like divorce heavy for some reason thing. What do? I do the hiking thing, scuba thing. Get around the right people. Great advice. Love that, angry capitalist. Matthew, howdy. Just ordered one book for me and one for my friend. I look forward to reading the distilled Dionisms. Thank you. The Dionisms are towards the end, and you don't have to read it in order, but the Dionisms are there. It's awesome. Thank you for that. I appreciate the support, and I really hope the information helps. Sometimes people learn differently. Audible book is coming, the ebook's coming, in writing. Some people learn a different way. I listened to the Audible book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Now, pay attention for a second. Just pay attention. So I had everybody's attention for just a second. How many times have you listened to Rich Dad Poor Dad? Until you read it, until you have a physical book in your hand and you go in here, you've listened to it. I listened to it probably 5 or 6 times. I had no idea it's 6 lessons. This book is 6 lessons. Never picked up on that listening to it. I listened to it. I got the concept. I hear him and his friend making coins out of lead from toothpaste things when they were kids and making fake coins. And I get all the ideas, but hand holding a physical copy and going, oh, this is a totally different experience than listening to it. That's the point of writing it. Surprised I have that right. I got that. Actually, I ordered that to give to somebody. So, and then I didn't take it to the meetup. Ryan, I love my dry suit. I just miss the freedom to drain when you want to stay dry. Yeah, there you go. That is a good point. Uh, I don't like the feet attached to the suit. I don't know what it is. Dark Spring. The biggest surprise that I had when I hit FI, financial independence, was I thought I enjoyed my job. Turns out I really didn't. The biggest shock, not biggest, a big shock to me when I retired, because I loved my job. Anyone who knew me, my job was 24 hours a day. I had instructors working 24 hours a day. I was the president of the company. I've been demoted all the way down to president of the company. I handled agencies. I was the president of the Northwest Career Colleges Federation, which is 112 colleges, right? Vocational schools. Like I was in legislative meetings to impact. I was doing all these things. When I retired, I felt 15 years younger. I had no idea what the stress I was under. I enjoyed it, but I had no idea. I don't think people know the stress they're under. Frank, Cynthia, if you make it this far in the video, old guy REI, you might enjoy your job and going to part-time uh, next year might be an option. But when you don't have work ever again and you realize how amazing the planet can be and how time freedom works and the stress you're on that you don't know, the deadline, the dates, the summer vacation has a ticking time clock, the winter break is only a week, the whatever it is, when all this goes away, it's eye-opening. You don't know what's happening to your body, what your job is doing to your body. Gio, I appreciate you, Dion. That was a great advice. I don't want the divorce, but she does. I have good credit. I make 6 figures, 0 debt, taxable investment portfolio 133. Used to be handyman. Nice. So you've got way more skills than I did. Every now and then, send me an email. Let me know how it's going. Ryan, the landlord can still enforce new nuisance complaints per the request of neighbors. This is what I'm doing with my new program, Safe Streets Now. Link to channel that talks about how to hold child support accounts income standby. Nice. The same guy, my legal mentor, also talks about how to file and use your own HOA as a very powerful asset protection tool. Interesting. Freedom Works. Rich Dad Poor Dad is the audible version of Back in Black. Highest selling album in history. I read everything Kiyosaki puts out, even the crazy stuff. Yeah, I'm glad you put the caveat in there of even the crazy stuff because he went off the deep end. But Rich Dad Poor Dad is good. My favorite Kiyosaki book is Cash Flow Quadrant. Once you understand the 4 categories of, we do not have a tax punishment system. It doesn't tax you for making more money. What we have is a tax incentive program. And once you see the cash flow quadrant and you realize there's this thing called a sin tax. Society doesn't want you to smoke cigarettes, but if we made them illegal, the black market would blow up and we'd have prohibition, right? So let's just tax them. The 50-cent worth of cigarettes in a box will be a $12 carton. I have no idea what cartons cost. I don't smoke. But I do know that there's a 57% tax on alcohol in Washington state, where there is no R, but there is a tax on alcohol because they don't want you to drink. That's crazy. You literally need liquid to live, right? So they tax it to stop you from doing it as much. You are taxed for working your W-2 job. The government doesn't want you to have a W-2 job. They tax you to punish you for working. If you're a solopreneur, not an entrepreneur, but a solopreneur, you're like a dentist that runs your own office, or you're a handyman that runs your own business, or a contractor that runs your own thing, you're taxed twice. You get the employee tax and the employer tax. If you run a business, no, they like that. We need innovation. We need productivity. We need the GDP to grow. So we want you to hire people. We don't want the people to be hired, but we want you to hire people. So you get taxed less. Corporate gains, capital gains is, taxed at 21%, 15%. The first 48,000 is 0%. Like there's a lot of better tax benefits to owning a business than working for one. But what do we really need? We need innovation. We need funding. We need housing. So the investor gets to depreciate their properties. They go up in value, and you get to tell the government, it's a year older. I'm going to take off some of the price, get to make $250,000, $40,000 in profit and not pay a penny in rental income tax. Once you understand the cash flow quadrant, it was like, oh, how the heck do I move from here to here? Because the government wants me to. I hope you all have a week full of amazing. If you came into the video late, please go back and watch the first section of the video because I actually put together a presentation. Let me know if the information was helpful. You will be alive in 5 years. Please start investing like it.